Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg,
essayist and commentator Eric Levine,
and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. With us is our co-host, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist, Eric Levine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Well, just when you thought nothing else could blow the Knicks off the front page of every station.
The Mets do it every day.
Okay. I forgot about that. They get themselves blown off. So, just when you thought that was possible, Iran and the United States have entered into a so-called memorandum of understanding. So, I want to set the framework, then I'll turn it over to Eric and then Jesse. Let me, as Nixon used to say, let me say this about that. To say that I find this to be a disappointment is probably an understatement. To say that I saw this coming is absolutely correct. Trump was under a lot of pressure because of the midterm elections, because of inflation, because of the price of oil. The theory of the political types around Trump was very simple. You got to win the midterms. You can't win the midterms. The price of oil is up and inflation is not channeled down. And that was that advice. Trump famously said that the Iranians have never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. And Donald Trump proved that once again. I don't know what the United States of America got out of the so-called MOU. And I understand it's just an MOU that gives another 60 days to have another conversation. So it's a conversation to have a conversation. But in the meantime, they're opening up the Straits of Hormuz, which we will note were open before the military engagement by the United States, and that they're going to be able to get all kinds of money from the shipment of oil, which will help restore their economy. Now, let me submit to you that when the Vice President of the United States or the President himself says they're not getting any U.S. money and they're not unfreezing any money, that's nice, but money is fungible. That means when they get money from the supply and sale of oil, they can use that for any purpose they want. Money is fungible. And the historical record is they will build up their military capacity. They'll give it to their proxy allies like Hamas and Hezbollah to build underground tunnels and their missiles and their drones. They'll enable the Iranian tyrants to reconstitute themselves. What did we get out of this? I don't know what we got out of this. I really don't know what we got out of this. Now, I want to be clear. I believe that the United States, under Trump's leadership, did a remarkable job militarily in winning the war, but they didn't do the closing deal. They did not do the closing deal. And they should have done the closing deal. You cannot trust the Iranians. The only thing you can trust about the Iranians is that you can't trust the Iranians. We have 47 years of dealing with them. When they say death to Israel and death to America, they're talking about death to Western civilization. They mean it. When you talk about the so-called moderates in that regime, there's no such thing. It's just a different gambit, how they want to play us. And they play us time and time again. The problem with all the presidents is they've been played by the Iranians who want more time, more delays, more time, more delays. And as Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law, Kushner, learned, they had close to 11 or 12 nuclear weapons ready to go with the capacity. All they needed was the missile delivery system to do it. They had the enriched uranium that they needed. So please, let's grow up and be realistic. It is time to face the reality. It's now time to face the reality that these people have to be stopped. Now, is Trump going to win this game of chess? I don't know. I certainly hope so for the sake of our children, our grandchildren. But I'm not sanguine about what's happened here. Again, I give the president enormous credit for what he's done up to this point. But I'm in the camp of General Jack Keane, who believed that we had to take more military action to really put them back on their heels before doing anything like this. Delay, 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 gambit, gambit, gambit. And let's not forget who we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who are dedicated to our destruction and totally untrustworthy. Eric.
Yeah, so let's make certain concessions right at the outset. The first is that we're in this position because of Barack Obama's JCPOA's Iran nuclear deal. It gave Iran a legal path to a nuclear weapon. It gave them a ballistic missile system with which to deliver it. It gave them hundreds of billions of dollars with which to rebuild their military, save their economy, fund their terrorist network, and to advance their hegemonic goals in the region. Notwithstanding that they were an economic basket case and an extraordinarily unpopular regime with people in the streets calling for the overthrow of the regime. Obama, are you with us or are you with the Nazis? And Obama sided with the Nazis. That's the hand that Trump was dealt. So let's also concede that following Operation Midnight Hammer, the Iranian nuclear program was set back years. How many years, I don't know, but it's certainly far more than being 2 weeks away, 2 months away, 3 months away, which is what they were creeping towards, because the Iranians are incapable of living up to their word, Richard, as you point out. Let's also concede that most recently, as part of Operation Epic Fury, Iran's anti-aircraft and missile defense has been destroyed, their navy has been sunk, their air force has been obliterated, their ballistic missile stockpile has been reduced, their ballistic missile launchers have been badly damaged, and one of the unsung heroes of this, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, has done a fabulous job on Operation Economic Fury, helping to destroy their economy. So militarily and economically, we're definitely in a better position today than we were the day before we attacked Iran. We were winning on every front, and then inexplicably, we stopped. I mean, it's like a marathon runner. A marathon is 26 miles, 385 yards. It's like a marathon runner running the 26 miles and then just not finishing the last 385 yards. But where are we geopolitically and strategically? Let's talk about the MOU that the president has entered into. Who negotiated it? Who were the interlocutors? Pakistan. Let's remember, we found Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The Pakistanis were aware he was there and they were giving him protection. Pakistan is an ally of China. Qatar. Qatar is a pro-Hamas, pro-Muslim Brotherhood theocracy and a funder behind the radicalization of our colleges and universities. Turkey, a pro-Hamas, pro-Muslim Brotherhood government led by Erdogan, who's looking to reconstitute the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East.
And an enemy of Israel. And Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, who until recently I generally was of the view that it was a matter of if not when they would join the Abraham Accords. I am now convinced that the Saudis have no interest and will not join the Abraham Accords anywhere in the near future. They are hedging their bets. They have concluded that this regime is going to survive and they need to make peace with it. So they acted as an interlocutor because even under the greatest deal of all time, Trump is here only for another 2.5 years and the regime will live on. So they are not joining the Abraham Accords and they're making their accommodation with the Iranians. Who was frozen out of the process? Who did not participate in the negotiation of the MOU?
Our most loyal and strongest ally in the world, Israel. The United Arab Emirates, who actually flew sorties with us to attack the Iranians. Bahrain, very pro-Israel, very pro-American. And Jordan, who did it quietly, but provided us with support on drones, missile defense, and other logistics. Gone. They were completely frozen out of this process. What were the original war aims? The original war aims, as stated by the president, was no nuclear weapon program for Iran, no ballistic missile program, no support for terror proxies, regime change, and his promise to the Iranian people who were in the streets, help is on the way. As of today, unfortunately, none of those goals have been achieved. And in fact, if you look at the 14-point MOU, the only one of those goals that's even addressed is the nuclear weapons program. The no ballistic missiles, the no support for terror, regime change, help is on the way. Those aren't even addressed. But Richard, as you point out, Iran has some concrete achievements. The Strait of Hormuz is going to open, and they will be free to sell their oil. That will result in tens of millions, of hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for this regime. And it is not going to go to build a Planned Parenthood headquarters. It is going to go to reconstitute and rebuild the IRGC and the terror network, its military, and the infrastructure that supports all of that. That's where that money is going to go. The people of Iran will come last. If there's something left over, they'll build a school. If there's something left over after that, maybe they'll build a hospital. But what they're also achieved, a concrete achievement, is that they have learned what an extraordinarily powerful weapon it is to close the Strait of Hormuz. They have concluded they are taking away from this. They may be wrong in the end, but they are taking away from this that they will not be attacked militarily if they close the Strait of Hormuz. And therefore, every time they want something, another concession, they will close the Strait of Hormuz until they get it. And they will keep repaying the chit of this opening the straits in exchange for more and more and more concessions. And the sad thing is that we had the capacity, the military capacity, to open the straits. We chose not to use it. I think that's unfortunate. I hope the president is right. I hope the MOU works out and that he's able to reach a deal and all these other great things. But I think it underestimates who and what we're dealing with here. But what I find most problematic, what is most disturbing to me and upsetting to me, is that within the MOU, it expressly provides that this ceasefire, this 60-day period, includes Lebanon. In other words, Israel cannot attack Hezbollah. So here's the question I want to ask our listeners. If 5 million Americans were displaced from their homes because either Mexico or Canada were launching missiles and rockets into the United States, what would we expect our government to do? I think it is fair to say that every American, all 330 million of us, would advocate and support an American military action against those people that were launching missiles at our fellow Americans. Why are we asking the Israelis to do something else? What Hezbollah has succeeded in doing is displacing hundreds of thousands of Israelis from northern Israel. Whether or not the missiles actually kill anyone is somewhat incidental. They're not killing them because they've been forced to leave. Israel cannot live with that on their border. They can't. It's a small country. They can't have portions of it depopulated.
They're de facto losing territory.
Exactly. So whether it is the most liberal Israeli government or the most conservative Israeli government, they're never going to withdraw from Lebanon, and they're always going to defend their national security, the border. That is their obligation to do that. They are required to do that. So posit this scenario. Let's put together the Strait of Hormuz and Lebanon. There's an Israeli election in October, and there's an American election in November. Sometime, my prediction is, I could be wrong, but I think it's a realistic possibility that starting in August, maybe sooner, maybe right away, the Hezbollah terrorists will start launching more rockets and missiles into Israel. The United States will try to tamp down on an Israeli response because they want to give the MOU the opportunity to work. But eventually, once we get closer to October in the Israeli election, there's going to be a large Hezbollah attack on Israel. And Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister, who wants to be reelected, is going to respond. Now, any prime minister will respond. No matter how liberal or how conservative, they would respond. And then they respond, and then the Iranians will say, Israel attacked Hezbollah in Lebanon. They have breached the ceasefire, and in retaliation for that, we're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. And we won't open it, America, unless and until you force the Israelis to stop. Now, that's going to happen in October, just on the eve of the American election in November, which will drive up the price of oil and drive up inflation and cause and wreak economic harm to the United States and cause possibly a wipeout of Republicans in November. And who will be blamed? We know the Democrats will blame the Israelis. The Democrats blame the Israelis for just existing. And then you have the Tucker Carlson wing of the party and the Republican Party that also blames Jews just for existing. So Israel will be blamed. And then you're going to run into the issue for American Jews and other supporters of Israel, that when they come to the aid of Israel and support of Israel to explain why the Israelis are doing what they're doing, we will be subject to the allegations of dual loyalty, the anti-Semitic trope. And that will put more and more distance between the United States and Israel and put American Jews at greater risk. Now, of course, the last point I would make is this deal, the MOU, by its own terms, provides for $300 billion in reparations. $300 billion. Obama gave them $115. This provides for $300 billion. And the rejoinder we hear is that, it's not taxpayer money.
Some answer.
But who cares?
It's fungible.
Exactly. Money is fungible. That's why you have secondary sanctions, so that Iran isn't selling. It's not the Iranian oil. We're also going to sanction the countries that buy it, because you want to cut off the flow of money into Iran. And so the Gulf states are going to put in this $300 billion, invest. It's really reparations, to rebuild Iran. And what are we going to do, the United States? Are we going to say to Qatar, to the Saudis, to Oman, we're going to sanction you? We're going to attack you if you keep giving that money to Iran? Of course not. And then we will have lost the upper hand. Iran will have gotten something in exchange for virtually nothing. And the very final point I would make is the president makes the valid point that if they don't capitulate on the deal, I'm going to start to bomb them. But I think the point that is missed is who and what we're dealing with. There is no amount of bombing that is going to persuade this regime to stop what it is doing, because their deal, their social pact is not with their fellow Iranians. Their pact is with Allah. All they care about is the regime surviving. It is an apocalyptic, nihilistic, Nazi death cult. So they are prepared to have all 90 million Iranians die, to have the entire country buried in rubble, so long as the regime survives, because their concept of time is eventually we'll dig out, eventually we will rebuild, and we will eventually prevail. So that gets us back to the original point that we've made previously on the show. The only solution to this is regime change.
All right. We have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to have Chairman Garcia leading the conversation on this Iranian deal. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party. Noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us for more important and interesting conversation. We'll be right back.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Systane Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Systane Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire.
Whoa, that's good.
This might be the drink of the summer.
Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it, okay.
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers Concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
33 days, 33 episodes, no off switch. From the goals and the glory to the politics and the problems of the World Cup. If you want soccer analysis from a podcast that's been over-analysing the game for more than 20 years, then this is it. Join me, Max Rushton, and our expert team of soccer journalists every day of the tournament. Can England end 60 years of hurt, or will this be another year of falling just short? Probably. World Cup Daily, listen wherever you get your podcasts, or watch full episodes on YouTube.
Let the Record Show is on the air. This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg,
essayist and commentator Eric Levine,
and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So I've given my points about the Trump deal with the MOU with Iran. Eric has given his thoughts and his analysis as well. Now we turn to Jesse for his thoughts. And we have not lobbied Jesse in any way, Let the Record Show, at the break. So Jesse, you're free to say anything you want within reason.
Thank you, within reason. So let me just begin. I want to thank the anchor and our co-host Eric for saving me from an embarrassing moment as we were leading into this segment. The archives will save that somewhere, and it'll be probably listened to years from now, and we can all laugh at me after I'm gone. But just
we'll put a time capsule.
We're laughing at you now, but that's okay.
Eric, would you let the man do some substance? Go.
A politician with substance. Okay, here we go. So in my 35 years of professional politics, the one thing I've known, no matter where you are in any level, is that whenever you have an understanding, an agreement, an MOU, in this case, there's always going to be an outcry of opposition to it. And rightfully so. That's a part of it and such. I think that any type of deal was going to bring some opposition to it. But let me just point out to you, I want to echo, Your Honor, what you said and what Eric said at the start of your critique of the MOU. The fact that the president has done what needs to be done militarily. He has done everything that he needed to do with leading in terms of Midnight Hammer and the True Fury campaigns, both economic and militarily and such. And what Eric said was that he equated it to it being a marathon. And that this is a case where the marathoner stopped maybe 325 feet from the finish line. I will share with you that I don't believe that the marathon is over. I believe that this 60-day pause, for one reason or another, is not going to last 60 days. History has demonstrated that. The actions and the antics of the Iranian regime have demonstrated that. I do believe that both parties and everyone involved here are playing chess and not checkers. But I do believe that the president is looking at this at a more three-dimensional situation. Do I believe, as someone who's a political chair, that there's some politics that is playing into this? Absolutely. I don't believe he's governing from that point of view, but I understand that always has a rationale. So let's understand, it's only 60 days and it can be broken at any time. Regardless of what this agreement says, it does not bind Israel from undertaking its defense of its nation and its people, whether it's in Lebanon or other areas. And I believe that that's going to continue, and it must continue for the Israeli people, because they are our strongest ally in the area, our only ally in the area. But I also want to straight to what the president said in the G7 meeting in France. He said that if they're acting badly, and that's very plain speaking terms, he will continue to bomb them. And I believe that the best use of that is that if the renowned Israeli intelligence agency, Mossad, or any other trusted U.S. allied intelligence agency shares information, including our own intelligence gathering apparatuses, that Iran, to use the president's word, is acting badly, that the fury of the American military will once again be on the deck. The other thing I want to take forward is I think that what both of you said is right, is that I think the world, not just Iran, has seen how important a blockade or the Strait of Hormuz is. let's not discount the fact that during whatever pause is there, and maybe I've read too many Tom Clancy novels, he's my favorite author, that during that time period that the operations to permanently keep the Strait of Hormuz open and to protect it from being mined, and maybe in this case, since there are European assets from France, from Britain, now in the area, including minesweepers, that there will be a larger presence there so that this could not be repeated as a tool by Iran. I think that those considerations have to move forward here. And as I said, at any time, this MOU, which is really truly not binding because at one point or another, any one of the parties can declare the other in violation. But again, I would submit to both of you that the one thing that this is that it is a marathon. I don't believe, and I submit to you that this marathon is not over. It's still being run, maybe at a slower pace and such, because they just added on maybe an extra mile or two to this marathon. But it's still a marathon that is not over. I believe it's going to give this time that's needed to clear and take away the tools that Iran has demonstrated will use, that has had an impact on our allies in Europe, and we'll make sure that permanently can't be used again. And again, and once again, I want to reiterate what you both opened up and said, that the operations that we've done militarily, the operations that have been done economically, first and foremost, whatever type of flowing of currency or funding is not going to replace immediately. It's not going to be on top of whatever coffers they have. The Iranian economy and their budgets have been blown. Not to be ironic there. So they're really starting from below zero. So that was my assessment that I would share with both of you.
Well, my problem is that Iran will take the opportunity with delays to reconstitute itself.
Well, especially with the money that's going to be coming in, the oil money that's going to be coming in.
They can have money which they can spend. They'll spend it the way they want.
And the fact that England's there and France is there.
Yeah, who've done nothing.
Well, even if they do something, let's remember how they close the strait. They don't close the strait by massing their navy and blockading it. They put in a couple of mines, they lob in a couple of missiles, and they leave it to the insurance companies to refuse to insure.
Yeah, lawyers in London.
But Eric, and Your Honor, that's my point. As we've always said when we've talked about other conflicts in the world, we've always said the one entity that's always watching everything and learning from is China. I do believe in this case that the United States and its allies have learned from Iran in how they're going to conduct themselves. So what you just said, to be able to remove those mines, now to take the steps to ensure that those mines cannot be replaced. The fact that we can then go after their surface-to-air missile banks that you have just mentioned, it gives us the opportunity. Also, it allows our allies, who have said, they're cowards. They're, Europe and all these European nations who depend on the Strait of Hormuz, by the way, are cowards. They said they really couldn't get involved unless there was a cessation of hostilities. Well, they have no excuse now, and their presence to clear that area, and along with the American military, will allow to be a presence there under no hostilities, so that they can go back to their constituencies and said, we're not taking part in this. We're just, ensuring the MOU goes forward, because politics happens there too, bad as it is, and it allows that presence to be there. It prevents the mining of those of the strait once again, or at least makes it far more difficult for it to happen. And again, I submit that it does not mean that our military is going back to its home docks and returning back to base. It's not. The presence is going to be there.
Well, 2 points. One is the Iranians also have these drones that they can close it with. Look, the insurance companies...
Everyone's got drones now.
Right, I understand. That's the point. The Iranians have these drones, and the insurance companies, to the extent that they're concerned that any of these ships are going to go down, they're not going to insure them. And some of these ships, as Trump correctly points out, are like $1 billion. So no one's just going to go through the strait. So that's the first point. But the second point, once all this money starts flowing in, the Iranians are going to start reconstituting what they're going to do. But whether or not we use our military, I think, is a secondary factor to whether or not the Iranians believe we will. And I think there's sufficient evidence to indicate that we may not. And the other thing I'm concerned about, I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I disagree. Reasonable people can disagree on that. I understand. Mm-hmm. But what I'm also concerned about is, let's look at Taiwan for a second. If I'm China and I'm watching this, one of the things a reasonable interpretation to walk away from, we hope the Chinese don't reach this conclusion, but they could, is that if we were to invade Taiwan, we just have to be there long enough for the Americans to lose interest or give up. They don't like protracted conflicts. In the wake of Iraq and Afghanistan, they just don't like protracted conflicts. So if we can just stay long enough, the Americans will leave, which means that it increases the likelihood that they will attack Taiwan. That is one way the Chinese could see this.
And let me just...
I don't disagree with you with that, but what I will say is that you just described any type of war, conflict, military action with the American people, with a democracy or a constitutional republic or a free society. You're right. If the constituency gets uninterested, whether it's in America or any other free living country, that's the balance that has to be weighed. It does not mean, though, that our leaders, stick their finger in the air and see which winds are going, and that's the way they go, or be driven by polls. No, they're hired. They're elected because they're to be strong. They're supposed to lead.
Yeah, but the only one, but Jesse, respectfully, the only one who's done any real leadership on this issue, to his credit, is Donald Trump. And they're playing the long. But the Iranians, like the Chinese, they play the long game. They figure
what happens in 2.5 years when Trump leaves.
Trump is history.
Do you think for one second that Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or AOC or some other DSA commie American hating Jew hater is going to attack Iran? No, they're going to attack Israel if they attack anybody.
Yeah, absolutely not. I completely agree with you. That was the one point I didn't get to in this part of the discussion, is that, and one of the things, and both of you brought it up, so I didn't really touch upon it, is that the MOU, 60 days or otherwise, doesn't extend past the term of this Republican president. And if a Democrat gets in office, any Democrat gets in office, it will be unilaterally different than what the Trump administration or any Republican within the party structure, not the Tucker Carlsons of the world, because they don't represent the party. They don't speak for the party. They're one voice that's trying to get clicks, trying to get revenue so he can have his high-style livelihood and living conditions and such. Republicans that understand this, like Marco Rubio and others, that's why this is like, when you say it's a long game for America too. The long game is past 2028, where a Democrat does not take the White House, does not take control of the House of Representatives or the Senate combined, so that they can reverse all the good, whether it be in the Middle East or whether it be here at home.
Let me just say, I always felt
that's the long game.
I was always feeling better when I was watching Marco Rubio on TV talking about this. That always gave me a sense of comfort. I have to say,
honestly, we just have a couple of minutes in this segment. I just want to make a couple of points. Number one, I think if there's been a failure here, is that as they said in the movie Cool Hand Luke, what we have here is a failure of communication. I don't think
failure to communicate.
No, we have a failure.
We have a failure to communicate.
I'll have to look that up.
Okay.
Okay. You know who said that?
I'll bet you dinner.
Strother Martin.
All right.
Strother Martin.
I'll bet you dinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You bet me dinner. You owe me dinner anyway. What's it? No. Okay.
Where do I get dinner?
Well, you come into the city and you have dinner. It's our honor and privilege to split the check to support you and the Republican Party out in Suffolk. All right. Look, let me make a couple of points. Number one, this failure of communication is very troubling. Trump did not lay out, I respectfully submit, as clearly and as calmly, with clear talking points in a fireside chat, why we went into this. He has not clearly explained what this MOU is, how we got there, what the safeguards are in this process. You know, he can't rattle off the top of his head in a press conference and doing a riff.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day?
Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
It's 1938. The 2-week pay period is invented. But then the world got faster. Faster travel, faster delivery, faster everything. Except our pay. Until now, with Daily Pay, everyone can access money they've earned when they need it. Yes, this is the future of pay. Daily Pay. Work with the leader in on-demand pay at dailypay.com. Transfer fee may apply.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Cocktails up here feel just right. Is Cambria amazing? All right. Bring a date, your team, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com. See you on the roof.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg,
essayist and commentator Eric Levine,
and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Switching gears, gentlemen, there's something called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, also known as FISA. It's a very important piece of legislation. It gives us the ability to do surveillance of foreign communications,
Section 702.
Section 702 of the Act.
702.
Very important piece of legislation. It comes out of the 9/11 disaster. It enables us to protect and defend this country. The Democrats, with a handful of Republicans, have failed to extend it statutorily. And they have to bring that back for more votes because they have to ultimately get it extended statutorily. But there's a saving provision, and if one does research on this, you'll find out that there was an administrative determination, quasi-administrative judicial, which said that it will last, even if there's no statutory extension by the Congress, it will last at least through March of 2027. So there's time to do it, but I submit to you, the sooner you do it, the better off you are. You don't want to have any gaps in this. It's nice that they play niceties about who you're surveilling, how long, and what they're doing. These are all very interesting academic questions, but if you get hit with another 9/11, you're going to look ridiculous having fought over this. People say this is a matter of constitutional dimension, and I submit to you the first obligation under the Constitution is to protect and defend this country against these foreign attacks. And we failed in 9/11 because the Clinton administration wouldn't let the intelligence types and the prosecutor types share information. We failed in not doing our adequate protection against the Islamists who made it clear that they were going to destroy us if they had the opportunity. So that was a failure of the Clinton administration. Let's not have another failure of the Democrats doing this to us and a handful of Republicans joining that battle. So that's my point on FISA, and I'll turn that over in a few minutes to Jesse and to Eric. The second piece of legislation that's very important is the SAVE Act. SAVE Act is really about election integrity, and unless you have faith in your elections and the integrity of elections, you have no faith in a Republican form of government and the results. And this is very troubling. And on its own merits, the SAVE Act really should be passed. I'm not for breaking the filibuster, because if you ratify the breaking of the filibuster, then when the Democrats come in, Puerto Rico will be a state, and District of Columbia will be a state, and you're going to have 4 more U.S. senators will always be Democrats, and Republicans will never control the Senate.
That's not necessarily
again.
True of Puerto Rico.
Okay, but it's close enough. Yeah. Certainly, you'll give me that District of Columbia certainly.
They have an outstanding Republican governor.
Yeah, but you'll give me that with respect to the District of Columbia, who's just is about to elect a socialist DSA type as their mayor. That you're giving away 2 free seats.
To counterbalance that, we should make Long Island its own state.
Absolutely,
I think that would be fantastic.
And Staten Island.
Listen, I'm with you guys. And by the way, you're going to have more and more movements like this, I predict, in the future because of the division of our country between blue and red, where the city's controlling the blue and everybody else is red in the red states. And people are going to want to break out. Different pieces of California want to break out. Pieces of Colorado are going to break out. Other places across the country are going to want to break out, including in the state of New York. So the SAVE Act has to be passed, but I wouldn't give up the filibuster on that. And I wouldn't do what Trump is doing on the SAVE Act and the FISA by joining them together because that only complicates the debate. I'm all for election integrity. I believe it's absolutely essential, but it has to be won on its own terms. You got to get the FISA reenacted. And the last thing I want to say, then I'll turn it over to you, gentlemen. The War Powers Act. Now, reasonable people can argue about this. I respectfully submit the War Powers Act is unconstitutional. If it went to the Supreme Court of the United States, it would be a violation of the war powers of the Presidency of the United States to protect and defend this country. It ultimately should be repudiated by the Supreme Court because it's a ridiculous hamstringing of the President of the United States in protecting the country in times of war. And for those people who say the reason Trump got into the ceasefire in the first place was because the 60-day clock was running on the War Powers Act, and therefore he kept saying everything is defensive, it's not aggressive military action. To the extent that hamstrings the President of the United States, that's a very dangerous phenomenon, and I would have totally disregarded it if I was in the Trump administration. So, having said that, first Eric, then Jesse.
All right, so let's start with the Foreign Intelligence Service Act. That's FISA, Section 702. So what exactly are we talking about? So this relates to when a foreign national from a foreign country, physically in a foreign country, calls into the United States and calls an American citizen. What are the government's rights? What is their ability to be able to identify the call, identify the caller, and tape the conversation? So Osama bin Laden, when he called if he were to call from a cave in Afghanistan, has no constitutional rights. There's nothing that prevents the United States from taping his call and identifying where the call is coming from. But let's assume Osama bin Laden calls Doris of Forest Hills. And if anybody used to listen to the early days of WFAN, they know Doris of Forest Hills was the most frequent caller. We love Doris. She was a Met fan. But let's say Osama bin Laden now calls Doris of Forest Hills. Doris is an American citizen. She has constitutional rights. She has the Fourth Amendment protections against illegal searches and seizures, unwarranted searches and seizures. So if you were going to get information from her, you would need a subpoena. So what FISA did was it allowed for the government to identify the caller from the foreign country and identify where he is, and to a degree tape and record what it is they were saying. And all they were able to do and take from the person receiving the call was the phone number. And then if they wanted to pursue it further, they'd have to go to court and get a warrant to be able to open up the tape and listen to it or identify who that specific caller is. Perfectly reasonable. And it had been upheld by the courts. Perfectly reasonable. Now, there's no question that it had been abused from time to time, and some of the revisions and amendments to the original FISA law included penalties for those people who violated it. There weren't those penalties there before, so it is encouragement to violate Americans' constitutional rights who needed those protections. That was fixed. And still and yet, we can't get it passed. It is a bipartisan failing. Democrats just... they're really not interested in cooperating with Trump in any meaningful way. And then you have some extremists in the Republican Party that they just don't like the government involvement in anything. But there's no question that this is critical to protecting America's national security, and it needs to be re-upped. The Democrats use it as an excuse that the president nominated, temporarily, what's his name, Pulte, who had no national security experience to be head of DNA, the Department of National Intelligence. And he didn't, and he wasn't qualified. But to satisfy that, I mean, Trump then nominated Clayton.
Jay Clayton.
Jay Clayton, the U.S. attorney from the Southern District of New York, an extraordinarily talented and experienced guy, to become the head of the DNA. And they were supposed to have the confirmation this week. John Thune wanted to make sure that it was through this week and that he would take the post by Friday, completely depriving the Democrats of this excuse to not support FISA. The president, unfortunately, in my opinion, complicated it by saying, I'm going to withdraw Clayton's nomination. He will not testify unless and until we can attach the SAVE Act to FISA. And they pass it as one. And then I'll put Clayton up, Petrie out, and Pulte out, and then we can have Clayton and everyone will be happy. Now the Democrats are saying, also remember, the SAVE Act is critically important. I support the SAVE Act. I want that passed too. The problem is tying the two together. I mean, what does the SAVE Act say? You have to prove you're a citizen. Oh, that's crazy. Only citizens can vote? Of course only citizens can vote. And you should be you should be able to prove that you are an American citizen. You should be able to show an ID. You need an ID to drive a car, to get on a plane, to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, to get your Social Security card. You need an ID for all these things. But somehow, perhaps the single most important right an American has is the right to vote. For that, all of a sudden, it's Jim Crow 2.0. Never mind that minority voting across the country has been increasing exponentially. Thank goodness. I mean, as it should. We want everybody to vote.
Georgia's an example of it.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect example. Georgia, the Major League Baseball, those morons, actually took the Major League All-Star game out of Georgia because they passed that Georgia Voting Reform Act, which has only increased the amount of minorities who have voted, and brought it to the state of Colorado, brought it to Denver, which has stricter voting rights, and has a lower percentage of minorities, and has a lower percentage of minorities voting. The whole thing's insane. But in any event, each of FISA and the SAVE Act should be passed. But let's at least get FISA passed. I think we can do that. And then to the last point on the War Powers Act, I happen to agree with you, Richard. I think it is unconstitutional because the Constitution lays out who has the power to do what. Congress has the power to declare war. The president he's the commander in chief. He can order the army to do whatever it needs to do. And then ultimately, Congress's power is the power of the purse. They can cut off funding. And that's how this is designed. So I think you can't amend the Constitution through legislation. And that's why I think ultimately the War Powers Act is unconstitutional. But we won't know for certain unless and until the Supreme Court rules on that. I actually think it might have been a good thing for the country had Trump forced Congress to pass a War Powers resolution, continue to do whatever it is doing, take a long time to get to the Supreme Court. He'd probably be able to finish whatever it is he had to do anyway. But then let the Supreme Court decide the issue, just so we have clarity on that. That would have been my first choice.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Yes, and let me just go through FISA. I think that one of the things, one of the reasons why the president is taking the tack that he is because, as you both pointed out, that despite the statute's expiration, the immediate intelligence gathering hasn't completely stopped. The Foreign Intelligence Service, FISA, is still inactive through 702 through I believe it's March of 2027,
right?
If I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
So that's again, if you look at the president and what he has in his hand, as opposed to what the Democrats have holding in their cards they're holding, I believe that that's one of the tools that he's using. I don't believe that the nomination of Clayton as the DNI should have been used as a bargaining chip, but who am I to disagree or to criticize that? To be perfectly honest with you, I don't have the full board in front of us. But I will say this. I think that you can't discount, and I understand it's been fixed on a bipartisan manner, the corruption and the misuse of FISA against protesters, against political donors, against political
It
adversaries.
was misused, Jesse, to interrupt you. The Democrats used it against the Republicans and conservatives.
Absolutely. And that's how I was going to conclude with this. It was the Democrats that abused this system for their political benefit at the short term. And now it's throwing in the entire national security and justice system into, intelligence gathering, national security into some question. But I wanted to share a quote with you. One of my favorite president in the world, Abraham Lincoln, who said, if we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be, because we destroyed ourselves from within. Without the SAFE Act, that's exactly what will happen. There are manipulators here, homegrown primarily. There are those in power using every tool imaginable. Here in the state of New York, it's a perfect example where they continuously change the rules of the elections to benefit one side. The Democrats do not believe in fair and open elections. They believe in placing their thumb on the election scales because their policies are failures, but they need to hold on to power and greed. And we say that citizens, of course you should be a citizen to vote in an election. Well, it was just a few years ago, and if it was the Court of Appeals that overturned when New York City wanted to allow non-citizens to vote in their city elections. So for that matter, I believe that we need the SAFE Act. And if we're going to have to work with whatever the ground rules or the rules that are in front of everyone, if the rules are going to be perpetuated and they're going to be abused by the Democrats by using congressional tools to block legislation, well, then the president and the Republicans, for something as important as our democracy, our constitutional republic, the voting integrity needs to use the same tools, especially when we know that large portions of 702 are still going to be in place for right through March of 2027. If there's going to be a filibuster to stop this on its own, well, then the president needs to use, and Republicans need not to disarm, they need to muscle up and push through legislation that's going to preserve this Constitution, preserve this country for years after we've gone.
Jesse,
unless you're going to get rid of the filibuster, and I'm a traditionalist. I believe in the filibuster. In fact, privately, I've shared with both of you that I have been having some of my own concerns about the filibusters because the filibuster is ending, ladies and gentlemen. It's ending. If the Democrats take the Senate, there is no filibuster.
Only if they also take the House and the White House. We had this discussion last time. They have to have all three for it to matter. So they won't remove the filibuster unless and until they hold the House, the Senate, and the White House. Then they will. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's not often.
I think really just all you need is both the House and the Senate, to be perfectly honest with you. I believe that's what you'll need.
Well, to be honest with you, it's not often that Eric Levine gives me comfort. I hope he's right on that one.
Me too. I'm trying my best out here.
I'm very comforting.
Okay. Well, I just got some comfort from the booth from Elias, who says this segment of Let the Record Show is winding down. I want to thank Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, for being here again.
Don't forget to wish everybody a happy non-gestating parent day on Sunday.
Right. And I wanted to give that honor and privilege to Chairman Garcia to wish everybody that. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you for listening. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America. And Jesse, the last word for this Sunday coming up.
Speaking for millions of fathers throughout this state and this country, I say happy Father's Day to all those great dads. Especially, I'm proud to be the father of Jay Alex out here on Long Island. And you know what, Kathy Hochul, and the Democrats, you want to find me? Come get me. You know where I am.
Well, I want to join in that. If you want to find me, I'll be hiding under the desk at the studio here at WAbC. Eric, where will you be hiding when Hochul comes after you with her woke thought police?
Under a keffiyeh.
Okay. Thank you for listening. We'll be back with you again next week on Let the Record Show.
Spotify, it's Jay Shetty. Are you one of those media strategy people? Scrolling through spreadsheets, searching for an audience that pays twice as much attention to your ads than they do on social? Let me introduce you to Fans. And they're here with me on Spotify. Trust me, I know Fans. They don't skip, they stay for hours. They don't move on, they manifest. They're not a demographic group, they're fans.
Spotify advertising. You're among fans.
Traditional banks are making it harder than ever to secure a small business loan. That's why thousands of business owners trust Cardiff for same-day funding. With over 2 decades of expertise, business owners keep voting Cardiff America's favorite small business lender. Apply now for up to $500,000 in same-day business funding at cardiff.co/Spotify. Again, that's cardiff.co/Spotify. Cardiff, borrow better.